about 30 miles away. 30 miles sounds like a long way, it's really not that far. So we were looking, we were pointing, wow, Lonnie, I see 7 spacecraft. You could see them vividly. They were pretty big. And we were pointing. We were in awe. And all of a sudden, one of those spacecraft broke from the pack. I kid you not. This huge flying saucer came within rock throwing distance to us. If I had a rock, I could have hit the spacecraft. Had I done that, I probably wouldn't be here today. They would have taken me out with one shot of radioactive blast. We didn't antagonize. We were freaked out. We were in awe. This spacecraft, I'm going to tell you how big it was. Knocked down the wall behind y'all to her room, knocked down this wall to the hallway, and it probably could have fit in the middle. That's how big it was. It wasn't a little drone. It wasn't a drone. It wasn't any type of spacecraft produced here on Earth. I'm going to tell you why. The technology isn't even there today. The government has tried recreating a flying saucer, by the way, that has been located in Roswell, New Mexico. That's a true story. They tried duplicating it, and I saw the footage. And that flying saucer couldn't get this far off the ground. They can't do it. Anyway, that's how big the spacecraft was. It wasn't just some little toy plane class. It wasn't a figment of our imagination. Y'all need to know that we weren't on drugs, and we weren't on alcohol. I had to drive several hundred miles, at least 250, 300. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. By the way, I didn't drink alcohol until after I saw this. Honestly, I didn't drink until I was like 21, almost 22.
It's good to hear.
I could have at 18. So we're watching, and this spacecraft, it had the color. It was, y'all know what stainless steel looks like?
Yes.
It was shinier than stainless steel. Remember, the sun was out. It was a clear day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Shinier than stainless steel. And we were in awe. Literally, our jaws were dropped. We couldn't believe our eyes. I said, Lonnie, that's a flying saucer. He says, I know it is. I'm really freaked out. I hope they don't drop a ladder. We were freaked out. We heard people have been abducted by these. I didn't believe in them, class. I was a non-believer. You don't have to believe this story if you don't want to either, but I was a non-believer. I didn't believe in flying saucers. I didn't believe in abductions by aliens.
Staff and students,
I didn't
please
believe
pardon
any
this
of that.
interruption. Students, if you still have not taken your spring photo and you have picture, money, order in hand, please have your teacher sign a pass and allow you to go to the library to take your picture. This is the last call for spring pictures.
I didn't believe in any of it. I know my debate partner, Lonnie, didn't believe in any of this. But I'm a believer now. You got to know that. So that spacecraft was within 100 feet. Not 100 yards, class. 33 yards high. That's about as high as a 6-story building. It hovered. Huge spacecraft. Looked a lot like this. It was a little flatter. But this has the right idea. It had the round saucer shape. It actually had lights pointing. Kind of weird. It had fluorescent lights. It had blue lights, green lights, some red lights blinking constantly all around it. And it just sat there. Here's the weird thing. Have y'all ever heard a helicopter? Pretty loud. Bust your eardrums open. Not a sound came out of this spacecraft. It wasn't a sound. A huge spacecraft. Didn't make a sound, class. Unbelievable. It was totally silent. And the lights were blinking. And I remember we were kind of freaked out. And Lonnie says, I sure hope they don't drop a ladder. We were actually thinking we might get abducted or something. We knew this wasn't from planet Earth, class. This machine, this spacecraft was from another planet, another galaxy, another dimension. There's no way, they can't even build that today. The closest thing would be a stealth bomber, and it's only been around like a decade. Remember, this happened in 77, class. Y'all weren't even born. Some of your parents weren't even born when I saw this. That's what we noticed about it, and that's what I remember about it. And we were just in awe. It stayed there for at least 4 minutes. It could have been longer. Like I said, we were freaked out. What can I tell you? We're young men. We didn't believe in this stuff, but we saw it with our own eyes. And I was looking for windows. I wanted to see an alien. I was looking for windows in this spacecraft to identify who was in charge, or Watt was in charge actually. I was a non-believer, and I never found the window. I never saw the alien. But let me tell you, when this spacecraft left from a dead, hovering position, and it was watching us, we decided that this spacecraft was watching us. I never left the ground, okay? I've done a lot of research on this since. One of the only books I got from the bookstore my wife and I owned in McAllen, Texas for 2 years, Book World, was this book. Above Top Secret, the Worldwide UFO Cover-Up. The government has been covering up flying saucers and aliens ever since the beginning of this country. So have other countries. They've hidden it from the public, class. Anyway, when this spacecraft left from a standstill, it still didn't make any noise, but when it left, it didn't just creep away. It went like, woof! I would estimate that it reached 2,000 miles an hour within a matter of 2 to 3 seconds, class. Acceleration, unreal. No noise still, not any noise. And it didn't just disappear, class. We saw it. Boom! And it met up with the other 6 saucers. We could see those clearly. It was a pretty big object, right? Not like a little drone you see. This was real, class. A real sighting. I question it all the time. I said, wow, I wonder why I was chosen to see this. A lot of people have seen things, class. I usually hear, hey, you should have seen what I saw last night. Keyword, it was nighttime. I saw lights. Okay. It's not a flying saucer. What I saw was no one will ever convince me otherwise, it was a real flying saucer in broad daylight at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in November 1977. When that thing took off, it didn't break the sound barrier. I didn't hear a pop, but it got close. And it didn't have to accelerate all the way. These things are fast. Think about these aliens. They travel from planet to planet like we travel from country to country. Who's ever been to Europe? About a 12-hour ride, right? I've been from Houston to Europe was 12 hours, nonstop. These guys, these whatever they are, aliens, class, they fly from planet to planet like we go from country to country. Advanced technology, more advanced than ours, is going to take a long time before we reach any of that. Now, so we got in the car, and I got on my CB radio. I had a CB, right? Y'all know what those are? Breaker 19, did anybody see that sighting in the sky, a flying saucer? Somebody came on. Breaker 19, what you guys been smoking? They thought we were smoking weed or something, hallucinating, okay? They really did. That's what he said. I remember doing. What have you guys been smoking? So we haven't been smoking anything. Somebody came on Breaker 19, I saw it. Somebody verified what we had seen. Of course, in these times, you're not going to have a camera. Now, with hindsight, I probably am glad I didn't have a camera. I don't know how they would have reacted to it. I certainly wasn't going to throw a rock or antagonize this. I knew better. But I can promise you that it's not from the planet Earth, that it was a flying saucer, and that aliens had to be in control of some foreign entity. So we're writing back. We're freaked out. We were talking about it, and Lonnie says, Larry, don't tell anybody about this. He says, I don't want anybody to know about this. I said, okay, Lonnie, you won't tell anybody. Next day, I'm in psychology class. I have a psychiatrist as my professor at St. Mary's University taking junior psychology. I forgot his name. Sir, you're not going to believe what me and my debate partner saw. So I went ahead and spread the news. I said, we saw a flying saucer. He said, really? He said, can you meet me at my office, Mr. Pawlik? I'd like to talk to you about what you saw. Yes, sir. So after class, I went to his office. By the way, this is an ex-colonel in the Air Force, retired. He's a psychiatrist. And he said, tell me what you saw, Mr. Pawlik. I told him what I told you. He said, Mr. Pawlik, do you mind if I give you a lie detector test? I said, no. I'm innocent, I don't lie. I said, no. So it was weird. I didn't know what he was going to do, but he put a little, kind of like a rubber deal here and a rubber deal here and a couple more on my body. And he had some kind of machine registering. He asked me questions like, do you attend St. Mary's University? You can only say yes or no in a lie detector test. I said, yes. Do you have any brothers and sisters? I said, yes. Have you ever smoked marijuana or used other drugs? No. did you see a flying saucer? I said, yes. I took the test, at least a dozen questions. He said, well, Mr. Pawlik, I'll tell you, you passed the test. You passed the lie detector test, but do you mind if I give you a psychological battery test? I said, oh, wow. He thinks I'm crazy or something. He said, no, I have nothing to hide. I know what I saw. He gave me this oral test. He's a psychiatrist, class. You know what that is. He takes care of people that are insane. And he asked me all these questions. And when I was done, he says, Mr. Pawlik, you passed this test. But let me tell you what you really saw, to cover up again. He said, Mr. Pawlik, what you saw was a weather balloon, and it wasn't a spacecraft from outer space. He was trying to convince me that what I saw was a weather balloon. I said, well, sir, you're wrong about that. He was my professor, I didn't care. I said, you're wrong about that because I've seen a weather balloon. My dad farmed 6,000 acres in Jim Wells County. That's 10 square miles, and I've driven every acre of that many times as equipment operator. And I saw a weather balloon that had crashed on a 4,000-acre farm just north of Dallas called the Emmleton Farm. My dad has leased that for 70 years. And they still have it today. And the 18-wheeler came in, the government came in with an 18-wheeler, and they picked up the weather balloon. It was kind of like a balloon, you know. It's what they use up in the atmosphere. They're flying right above us now, probably kind of like a satellite, but it has weather information. It didn't crash. They came in 18-wheeler. I knew what a weather balloon was. I said, sir, I've seen a weather balloon. I said, this was no weather balloon. This was a real spacecraft. He was covering it up right there. So, the author of this book, to verify, and by the way, I'll never go back. I don't deny it. Why am I telling you this story? I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you this story. Have an open mind, class. Do you really think in this vast universe that we're the only living intellectual beings? No way. There is a galaxy or a planet somewhere where life is much more advanced than us. We think we're intelligent and smart. These aliens are rock solid intelligent, and they probably have 10 to, you know, we only use 8% of our brain power. Do y'all know that? They must be using like 90% because these guys got it together. Let me talk about something here. Tim Good, the most thorough and best informed researchers into this arcane subject, and his book soundly is based upon facts and a great deal of convincing evidence, which I've never seen in print. He was chief of the defense staff with the United States government, the author of this book. He's like the chief of the military class for many years. He says if there were flying saucers produced by our government, I would have known about it. Number one, giving him credibility. All right, I have something to share. Y'all heard of Roswell, right? It was real. If you go to Roswell, you're not going to see any aliens. You're not going to see the flying saucer class, but check this out. The Roswell incident, 1947. On the evening of July 2nd, 1947, a bright disc-shaped object was seen flying over Roswell, New Mexico, heading northwest. The following day, widely scattered wreckage was discovered about 75 miles northwest of Roswell, New Mexico, by a local ranch manager, William Brazil. This old man, I've seen him on TV. I told you I watch a lot of news. I've seen this man give his story about what happened, word for word from his mouth, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. Colonel William Blanchard confirming that wreckage of a flying disc had been recovered. The unidentified wreckage, scattered over an area of 3/4 of a mile long by several hundred feet wide, consisted of various types of material, which according to Major Marshall, a U.S. Air Force, was like nothing he'd ever seen before. There was all kinds of stuff. Small beams about 3/8 or ½ an inch square with some sort of hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics, you know what those are? Drawings like Indians did in caves. On them, and nobody could decipher them. They looked like some kind of balsa wood, but they weren't wood at all. They were very hard and flexible. They wouldn't burn. There were small pieces of metal like tin foil, except that it wasn't tin foil. One piece of metal foil from the spacecraft, 2 feet long and a foot wide, was so durable that it could not be dented with a sledgehammer. This is some strong material. It's shinier than stainless steel, is what I can tell you, and that these aliens must really be advanced. Okay. This guy, Marcel, the U.S. Air Force guy, has logged in 468 hours of combat in World War II with the B-24 aircraft. He was awarded 5 air medals for shooting down enemy aircraft in World War II. We looked at some of the dead bodies. This is Roswell, class. And let me tell you about the rancher. The rancher said this in the news reporting. I'm coming out of the closet today. He was about in his 80s. He said, I'm coming out of the closet today. I want the public to know about the incident. I want y'all to know that the government threatened to kill me and all my family if I leaked a word of what I saw. The government's very powerful, class. It may not be hard to believe, but I don't doubt it. The government threatened to kill him and his family if he leaked a word about this flying saucer and the dead alien. He said, I lived with this for years, but I need the public to know what really happened. He had pictures. A spacecraft had landed into the ground, and half of it was above the ground, and half of it was buried in the ground. There were 3 dead aliens. I believe all this, because I know what I saw. This was after what I saw, class. I saw this about 25 years ago. I was teaching already. I was at Brown Middle School in McAllen when I saw this program. So Roswell is real. The government isn't going to tell you that's real. They may have moved the spacecraft and aliens somewhere else, but they were really aliens, dead aliens, and it was a spacecraft in Roswell, New Mexico, and that's all Roswell is known for. I want you to know that that happened and that it was real. These people, they were like humans, but they were not humans. Their heads were round, the eyes were small, and they had no hair. The eyes were oddly spaced. This is the Air Force guy. They were quite small by our standards, and their heads were larger in proportion to their bodies than ours. Their clothing seemed to be one piece and gray in color. You couldn't see any zippers, belts, or buttons. Exactly the way aliens have been described, class. 10 original witnesses have identified the object as non-terrestrial in origin. In other words, the witnesses that saw this spacecraft crash and burn, I'm sure it was the rancher and his family, and maybe some friends, said there's no doubt in their minds that it was a terrestrial. It wasn't from planet Earth. Class, I've read this 550-page book several times. I'm very interested in researching this. I'm going to read it again this summer if I get bored. Time after time. There's examples. If you were a soldier in World War II and you saw a flying saucer, you couldn't tell anyone or you'd be fired, probably commissioned to court. And you might get executed, class. The government's very powerful. And if you were flying sorties, example after example of these airline pilots, combat pilots in World War II, talking about how a flying saucer would come off their right wingspan or left wingspan, and that there's no way they could outmaneuver these objects. Example after example here. From real Air Force pilots that flew real sorties that finally says, I can't get sent to prison anymore. They released their story to this researcher. Class, I want you to hear this story because I want you to have an open mind that this is a vast universe and we're not the only intelligent life. Would y'all agree? You probably we're not the only intelligent life. There's life much more intelligent than we are, class. And I don't tell this story to everyone. And I have nothing to gain by telling you this story, class. But I know the story. I want to share my story because I saw it firsthand with my own eyes. And I will never deny what I saw. I was not on drugs or under the influence of alcohol. I was a clean-cut kid. I was an altar boy growing up in high school. Through high school, I was an altar boy at a Catholic church. I attended a Catholic university. And if I'm lying to y'all about anything I said today, then I give Jesus permission to kill me tonight and take my life. I'm not lying, I'm not making this up. Why would I make something up? Y'all know me enough, or I'm not going to make up a story like this. I have nothing to gain. I only tell my students, and not all my students ever get the story. I don't talk to it about adults. You know, I'm a lot louder than this usually. I don't want people to hear the story. So I don't tell everyone the story. I mean, if y'all go tell someone the story, that's cool. But I don't tell them personally. And only a handful of adults here at this school have heard the story. It's just not something I talk about. But I will tell you this. I think about this incident every other day, at least 3 or 4 times a week. And I think about it for a few seconds. But it's good. I'm not freaked out. I'm thinking, wow, how fortunate was I to see this spacecraft with my own eyes. Kind of makes me feel special, you know what I mean? Class, you don't have to believe anything about aliens, but I'm telling you, your English teacher has seen a flying saucer. There's no doubt in my mind that that's what it is from another planet, and that aliens had to be in charge of this, and I believe in aliens. Y'all, imagine being an astronaut. These aliens are astronauts. We're passengers in an airplane. We get 30,000 feet and look down and say, all right, man, this is really cool. They're in space like astronauts, and they travel from planet to planet like we travel from country to country. And furthermore, imagine being up there and seeing the planet Earth, the most beautiful planet in the universe. They're coming here to check it out, class. Why? I've always wondered why. Maybe they're here because they're running out of oxygen or something, whatever they live by on their planet, and they need another place. Folks, this has been going on for centuries. Indians, cavemen used to do pictures of these things. The government is freaked out. I want you to know that the U.S. government came out of the closet just within the past year. And I was so excited when the report at the evening news says the U.S. government has recognized that the possibility of extraterrestrial life is alive and well. They finally admitted that flying saucers and aliens just might be real. I was so happy when they finally did that. Nothing to be afraid of. I'm glad I shared the story.